All right. So that's as simple as clicking add device. I'll then use my gateway and add all the gateway serial number, add my devices to it, give it the slave ID, but we'll get to that just now. This is purely about managing and setting up your sites. Okay. Right. So once we've created a site, I'll just show you an example of what a bigger site looks like. So this one now, let's go for one that's a bit more basic. Okay, so you'll see on this side now, I've got all my information of my gateways and my devices attached to the site. Okay, I can go in and edit each of these and go and see the dashboards of each of these. But right now, we're obviously going to deal with just the site information. And we can see on the right-hand side here how many tags we have available and how many gateways we have available. Okay, and on different licenses, you get a number of tags and different number of gateways that you can have per license. If you're wanting to manage a site, right, we can click on the advanced section here. This will bring up a bit more information on the site as well, where we can obviously change it, change its name, change its group that it's part of, see all the devices that are attached to it, see the gateways that are linked to it, all right? Link additional gateways to the site if I wanted to. That is the section now where we're going to link additional gateways, and obviously manage your licenses of the site as well. Okay, so all of that stuff is dealt with under sites under the advanced tab. Okay, so where Polar Monitoring used to be more gateway based licensing, I'm sure you guys have seen the emails that have gone out, but we have moved over to a site-based licensing structure, and this now helps us manage all of that. All right. So that's pretty much it from a site's point of view. All right. So you'll be able to obviously now set up a site, and then after that, we're going to get into managing users, managing everything else. But this is just the basics of getting a site activated. Okay. Next, we're going to move to the actually managing and adding users to the platform. All right. So we're going to again go to the home page. On our right-hand tab now, we will be able to manage users, okay? And this one's going to get a bit more in depth because there's a bit more functionality on users themselves, all right? So in a users tab now, we can see a bunch of users here because I am on this group with these users, all right? I am a manager on this account, all right? And we'll get into that properly now as well. But essentially to add a user, we're going to go to the top right again. And this is if I want to invite somebody either to my group or my like obviously to my group so that he can see my sites and my devices, etc. And this is just again a basic input form. So you're going to give this the name, the email address, their phone number. Okay, these two details are actually vital for the system to function properly. All right, because we do alerting and that kind of functionality, you're going to want to obviously put in an appropriate email address and the phone number that obviously exists in real life, so that when we do have alerts and notifications, that we can actually send those out. All right. We could also add a bit of a welcome message here as well. And this is for if you're inviting somebody that isn't really notified about it yet, you can at least put a bit of a notification there. And then the next section we're going to talk about here is roles. All right. So roles on the system are how we limit access to what you can do on the platform. All right. Not necessarily what areas you can access in terms of sites and groups, but more about what your role can do. Okay, so you as a first-time register, your account will be a manager by default. Okay, so that's so that you can actually manage your site, manage your users, add different people to your to your system. All right, so generally speaking, you'll be a manager by default. Okay, managers allow you to manage other users, obviously add gateways, add devices, manage alerts, and obviously manage your groups and sites as well. All right. If you're adding somebody else and you don't want them to have that access, you'll obviously use information down here that'll better suit your application. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to then jump now to the least access control, and then we're going to work our way up to the most access control. Okay. So notifications only is, as the name says, this is for accounts that are only for giving people notifications. All right, they will not be able to access the platform at all. They will just purely be there to have an email or a phone number on the system so that they can obviously receive notifications from alerts that have been set up, okay, or reports that have been set up. All right, one up from that is read only, and as the name suggests, again, they can now log into the platform, okay? But they can only read things. They can go and navigate to devices, navigate to dashboards, see the information that's on there. They'll be able to download CSVs and pull reports, but they will not be able to push buttons or adjust any settings or change anything on the platform itself. All right, cool. Next on the list here is the user role. All right, so this is going to be your standard user role. They will be able to push buttons, use the system for what it's worth, but they will not be able to manage and change anything in terms of the setup. So they won't be able to add new devices. They won't be able to manipulate devices or edit any settings. They will only be able to see the platform and do the basic use. They could set up their own alerts if they wanted to. They can push buttons on the platform. They can draw reports. They can get notifications and all of that. All right. The next level up here is now the technician role, and this is like the top tier access on the Polar Cloud. Okay. This will allow users to get into certain areas that are not available to all users. All right. Specifically, programming information, register mappings, right, which is obviously how we deal with the registers on the system and which parameters to monitor on different equipments. Okay, they can only access that, and I'll show you where that lies just now when we get into the device setup. But they will be able to manipulate what parameters they can see, how often the data is stored on the system, what kind of poll rates and those kind of things just on the platform. So technicians are like the top end. They can even actually write raw Modbus commands through the programming menu to the devices that are connected as well. Okay. And now you can also be part of multiple roles at the same time. So generally speaking, if you want to have top tier access on the platform, you'll want to be able to be a manager and a technician. Okay. This will allow you to manage all of your groups, all of your accounts, and obviously manage them in a technical aspect as well. Okay. When you start going down the rest of the list here, these ones start overriding the higher up permissions. So if I tick a manager technician and I tick notifications only, my account now will only be notifications. Okay, and I will not be able to log into the platform anymore. And if I try and save this, a pop-up will come up saying, this will stop you getting access to the platform. Are you sure you want to do this? Okay, so generally speaking, when you create an account for the first time, you'll be a manager. And if you want to get extra information or extra depth in this, right, we're going to have to edit. You're going to have to edit your user role, right, which is found on the right-hand side there. And you're going to have to tick the technician box. Okay. You're going to have to then click save, relog into the system, and you'll then have technician access as well. All right. You'll see now this is obviously a filled-in version. I've got a fictitious cell phone number here. And obviously, this is going to be my email address. And I'm obviously part of these groups. And you can see you can be part of multiple groups. As I mentioned earlier in our spreadsheet, you can see in this case here, Mike is part of group 1 and part of group 3. So you can add different users to different amounts of groups as well. Okay. Awesome. You can obviously reset a password here as well for another user. And you can enable two-factor authentication through the system, and that'll then run you through a set of procedure for two-factor authentication on the cloud. All right. Perfect. Okay. Last things we can talk about here is the delete function. So you can obviously delete users from the platform, and that'll remove their access. And you can obviously see more in-depth user details, how often they log in, what kind of storage they're doing, how much activity they're using. And that kind of information through the user details tab. Okay. Lastly, we have a filter at the top of all of these windows, and you can obviously use the filter to your advantage to say, I only want to see who's accessed to the EM Experience Center, and I can see exactly which users are part of that. Okay, cool. I'm a manager and a technician, and we can see all the information you need to see. Okay. If you have deleted a user, and they're not permanently deleted, because generally it takes up to a month to permanently delete a user, you can click on the show deleted, and this will go and bring up users that have been previously deleted on the platform as well, just in case you want to reinactivate them on the system. Okay, right, so I'm going to move to the next section now, which is obviously setting up a gateway for the first time. All right, so for those of you that are familiar, you'll see that we have essentially three different types of gateways. they all function the same way, right? So we've got our Ethernet gateway, which is an internet connection via Ethernet only and has RS-485 out. We have an LTE gateway, which is obviously an RS-485 to LTE gateway. That gateway obviously has a Polar Monitoring Managed SIM card in the unit. It connects to any network, and we have coverage across the entire globe. All right. Finally, the last one is our new Glacier Edge product, which is an edge computing device, and it requires an on-site internet connection as well, just like the Ethernet version does, but it is a lot more obviously substantial in terms of what it can do versus the other gateways. But those are essentially the three gateways of the system. We'll get into the actual differences one day in a different session, but for this session now, we're going to talk about just adding the actual gateway to your account. Okay, so there are multiple different ways on actually setting up a gateway. The first one, if you're setting up one for the first time, you will see on the front of every gateway is a QR code. All right. And what this looks like is that if this is our gateway, you'll see on the front of the gateway there's a QR code and there'll be a serial number. Okay. So the first version is you can actually just scan that QR code with your phone and it'll take you through the gateway setup procedure. All right. The second way of doing it is that you come in to the gateway section, which is obviously on the right-hand side here, or alternatively in the right-hand menu. And I can then go to the gateways page where we will see all my gateways. All right. If I want to link a new gateway, I can click on the link a new gateway icon. It'll then ask me for the gateway serial number, where I can obviously type in the serial number of the gateway. All right. What this will do is it'll claim this gateway to your account and add it to your group, okay, or to your site, apologies. Okay. When you're setting up the gateway, it'll basically bring you a situation that looks like this. Okay, you'll land on, once you've scanned or entered that QR code, it'll bring you to a section here where you can actually see, here's my gateway serial number. I can give it a name. I can then now add it to the site that I'm wanting to add this gateway to. All right, and I can give it an install location. All right, and that's as simple as just double clicking on the screen or typing in the address, or actually it'll obviously use your geolocation to see where you are in the region. Okay. You'll see that on the right-hand side, we can do some diagnostics on the system. So when you're doing the setup procedure, your gateway has to be physically powered and connected to the Polar Cloud. All right. In order to obviously set it up on your account. Okay, if it is not connected to the Polar Cloud, it will not allow you to set up the gateway. All right, so you can just run a bit of power to it in your workshop or on site or wherever you are, and obviously run the setup procedure. We give a bit of a diagnostic reload here as well, so you can see your signal strength. Okay, and if your signal strength is too low, I think the cutoff is 25%. It'll not allow you to set up the gateway because at that signal level, you're not going to have a great user experience with the Polar system. All right. Obviously, on Ethernet-based units, you need to ensure that obviously your firewalls are open, that you are giving the gateway the internet connection that it requires. And the last one is obviously the install location. All right. After that, you'll click Setup, and that'll then add the gateway to your list here, and you'll see it in the list. All right. So that's method one of adding a gateway. Method two, we're going to go to our sites, which is obviously on the bottom left here, or obviously in the menu on the left-hand side, right? So in sites, again, we've created a test site earlier. I can go to my test site, and I want to click on the advanced section here because I'm trying to add a gateway. All right, and I'm going to go to gateways, and you'll see now there's a link gateway section here, which will take me through to that original point. All right, that will then take you through the same procedure, and when you add it to the sites, it'll then now show up in your sites list, like for interest's sake this one does, and I can see, cool, here's my gateway, and everything is working nicely. So we're going to move over to the next section here about setting up devices on the gateway. All right, so again, there's a couple different ways to do this. And depending on what you're trying to do, but I would suggest we start with going through the actual sites. All right. So once we have our site open, all right, we can select the site that we're wanting to deal with. So in this case, I'm going to choose the Omonde branch here, and I want to add a new device